Welcome to Meet the Morton Grove Press. I'm Christopher Michael. This is the first in what we hope will be a long series of programs that deal with the press that cover Morton Grove and the issues inside Morton Grove. In this edition, which is our inaugural, we're going to discuss the different publications that cover Morton Grove, their role in the community, and how you can be involved with their publications, not only reading, but watching them for the ones that are online. In coming months, we hope to have roundtable discussions with the newsmakers as well as with our reporters who are joining us here tonight. Joining us on this program are Eric Potters, who is the publisher of North Shore Voice, of which the Morton Grove Voice is a part. Next, we have Emily Stone, who is an associate regional editor in Patch.com. She oversees 12 different patches, of which Morton Grove's edition is one of them. Grace Tucker, the editor of the Bugle Newspapers. And Stephanie Hardiman of Trib Local, the suburban insert from the Chicago Tribune that covers Morton Grove. Matt Schmitz, the editor of the Morton Grove Champion from Pioneer Press, part of Chicago Sun-Times Media Group, was invited, but he could not attend. So, all of you cover, if not Morton Grove, at least other villages that have a lot of the same problems. So why don't we start with what your scope of coverage is for your publication in particular, and let's start with you, Eric. When we take a look at North Shore Voice and the Morton Grove Voice, what's your scope of work and how do you do it?
Well, the publication was started actually out of the Horseman's Voice, which is an entity started in 2003, and we had some issues in the industry in 2006 where I started coming to local meetings and saw a need to facilitate information within the village, both with village staff, the local community, and children. And it's kind of evolved into an interesting medium that is basically disseminating information through Facebook at the current moment through almost 3,000 people, which basically encompasses children because their parents are actually monitoring and now looking at my site, which is www.facebook.com/mgvoice, but encompasses now 35 communities. In 2006, I jump-started the North Shore Voice, the Tri-County Voice, as well as the Morton Grove Voice, and it's been interesting. There was 8 local communities at first, and it's kind of evolved into coming out of Cook County and going into Lake County. But as I said, my demographic's a little bit different than the other people here because I'm tapping into the future of our country, which is children.
Emily, taking a look at Patch, this is something that is new to a lot of people. I think even at this point, after it's been about a year or so, people are still just finally catching on to it. Tell us what Patch is and how it operates.
Sure. Patch is a national company. We have just over 850 hyperlocal websites around the country, and most of them are designed one patch per town. So Morton Grove has a patch. There are about almost 60 in the Chicago area, all in the suburbs. And we try to cover everything a traditional newspaper would cover. We do breaking news, crime, government stories, school stories, sports, features, people making a difference in town. We also want to have a place where people can go to get information about what's happening in town. We have events, we have announcements, there's obituaries, there's some of the more things you need to know to be educated and informed about your town. And we also are a community conversation forum. So we have a lively comment section. We also have a lively conversation going on our Facebook page as well.
I think we're all familiar with the Bugle because for those of us who've been in Morton Grove for a long time, we see the Bugle almost every week. And so tell us how, especially because you're divided up among different suburbs, I guess to a degree the same way the Patch folks are, how you cover Morton Grove.
Well, Morton Grove's one of 3 towns we cover in the Northwest, Niles and Park Ridge being the other 2. But the Bugle banner actually flies over 13 communities across 3 counties. In fact, today we just launched another Bugle in DuPage County, Westmont. So we're growing, and it proves a challenge to cover everybody adequately. We have reporters embedded in each town, much like Patch. You know, we're the community paper. Print, which surprisingly is still going strong.
Speaking of print, we have Stephanie Hardiman, who's here from Trib Local. Now, you're not from the Morton Grove version of it.
Sorry.
You're from one that's in the South Burbs, but you can still describe for us how you basically parcel people out to cover all the different suburbs for your weekly insert.
Absolutely. We have more than 80 hyperlocal websites. We are affiliated with the Chicago Tribune. We are a digital-first publication, so we do rely heavily on users coming to our website to interacting with us on the web. And then we do have a weekly zoned insert that comes out in the Chicago Tribune. If you're a Tribune subscriber, you will receive a tabloid insert that has local news for you. If you're not a Tribune subscriber, you can pick up the insert at most local libraries. There's also a number of other areas that we have drop-offs, and anybody can contact us with if they have a request of where it would like to be. And we have Tribune reporters that report throughout the area, covering things like the school board meetings, something that would happen here in this building. But we also do want the community to share their news with us, and we want to be a forum for you to talk about the outcome of your kid's soccer game, or the local fundraiser that you happen to be a part of.
Not meaning to get too far afield from where I was originally intending to go, but I think what we see in the four of you is the changing face of media, with still some hanging on to the old printed newspaper. There's an awful lot more going on, isn't there?
Yes, there is. Well, you can't discount print because, you have a good demographic. Senior citizens love print. You want to see a photo of your grandchild marching in the parade or a Cub Scout event. You want to see that, and you cut it out and you scrapbook it. But we also have a website, buglenewspapers.com, and our website is actually for all 13 towns. So each town's news has its own front on our website. We Twitter, we Facebook as well.
And Eric, I know that you've been primarily web-based since you started, right?
Well, it's interesting because, the entities that are sitting here, I actually facilitate their information. Am I stealing their stories? No, I'm actually facilitating, because people don't have the time to go to these individual websites. And when you go to my site, I'm facilitating information through Google Alerts, through looking at their websites, through getting information from numerous people throughout the village. I instant message children. They actually send me messages all the time. They're always like, who is this? Who are you? And I always say I'm a local hypermedia journalist. So it's interesting because it's a different angle on publishing. And you're going to see probably in the next 6 months, this publication is going to evolve most likely into print. I think there still is that touch me, feel me syndrome, like with faxes. And
Yeah,
I'm sure you
absolutely.
can agree to that. People want to have something they can read in certain rooms of their house, or read by a fireplace, or bring to work and read in the morning during a cup of coffee or during lunch. So things are hyper for now, but everything's starting to downsize, and you might actually start seeing a couple more print things popping up. I wouldn't be surprised if Patch might go print.
It really is an interesting way we're seeing media go, and it does sound like the four of you working for separate companies may have a cooperative yet competitive edge all at the same time.
Yeah, I always tell people when, whether we're out at a coffee shop and they see, the Trib Local sticker on my computer or whatever that may be, and they say, what separates you from my local newspaper, from the Patch site in my area? And I always encourage people to post to all of these things and to read all of these, because it's only helping you to be informed and to get your message out and to share your news. And that's really the goal that we all have, and we should all, encourage each other to be a part of that and really help the reader, who's ultimately who we're here to serve.
And
Trust us. We're reading each other's stuff.
Oh, of
Yeah,
course.
absolutely.
I mean, you look at
So-
Trib Local. I mean, you came out, I think, in June of 2009, if I'm not mistaken. And, I subscribe to the Tribune. I get it Thursdays. It's the first thing I do. I look at the Trib Local first thing in the morning. I try to see, what are they covering in that weekly calendar? The first thing I do is I open it up and look at that center. Wow, they don't have that farmer's market event? Wow, they don't have this, they don't have that. Who's choosing what to put in print? Who is choosing, I know you're limited for space, but it all comes down to ad revenue. And I don't think anybody can honestly say that ad revenue is increasing. And I think that's the main issue here with these publications, is revenue. Could it be the pricing structure? Could it be trying to get banner ads on websites? This is all to be learned, I think, in the near future.
And we do see an awful lot of print publications as well as broadcast media pushing people to websites on a regular basis.
Well, web has the immediacy that people want information right away, and that print has that nice feel of getting to sit down and saying, okay, I've got 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour, I'm going to sit down and really enjoy
Yep.
this publication. So they serve different purposes, and they're both important, but print does have, web has the ability to get people information immediately. As soon as they see the sirens going on the street, they can look on a publication or Facebook or Twitter and hope to get that information.
If someone is interested in getting something into your publication, and I use publication in sort of the broad sense of the word, what kind of deadlines do you have? Eric, we'll start with you.
You just call me at any time. I get phone calls all day long. People interrupt my day. I don't mind. You can reach me directly, 847-530-2222. I also have a direct hotline for more important news. You can go onto the Facebook page and message me via, like I said, www.facebook.com/mgvoice. But it's actually under North Shore Voice, and you can email me, eric@northshorevoice.org. So I try to utilize all forms of communication. Do you want to fax me? I can give you my fax number. But most people are actually sending instant messages, and they're sending emails the electronic way.
Emily?
Every patch site, including Morton Grove, has the editor listed at the top of it with an email or a link to their email address. So it's pretty easy to navigate those pages to find who to contact. In terms of deadlines, I'll start by saying that we really encourage readers to put their own stuff on patch when that makes sense. So put their own events up, their own announcements, post photos. If it's a story tip or something that they want covered, we post at all hours of the day, so there's not really a deadline to get anything in, but common sense would prevail that if you have something going on, this evening, you don't let us know at 6 o'clock, we probably won't be able to get there. So the more warning, the better.
And of course, I know when it comes to the printed word, you can't just put an article in the Bugle anytime you want. So what do you have to do there?
Well, you know what? Press releases, calendar items can be emailed. You can send those to N as in North, W as in West, editor@buglenewspapers.com. You can also email me, grace@buglenewspapers.com, for any tips or anything that somebody just doesn't want to see get lost in perhaps a general email address. But that's where we get almost all of our press releases and our calendar items. But now on our website, people can also submit news, and that's a simple button click as well to put it up themselves and to submit directly into our calendar.
And as for Trib Local?
Similarly to Patch, we do encourage people to share their news directly with the community, and you can do that 24/7 through our website, any number of websites. Doesn't necessarily have to be the town that you live in. You can post others as well. And as far as our printed publication, it comes out every Thursday, and typically we start planning the week before. So for example, tomorrow we will start planning next Thursday's publication. So we usually ask for 7 to 10 days in advance. And you can also always send an email to TribLocalTips@tribune.com, and someone will usually get back to you within an hour or so.
Okay, so now everyone knows how to get a hold of you and knows how your publications work. Let's look at Morton Grove. This has been a very interesting year so far in Morton Grove. What do you see as the most compelling story or stories that have come through Morton Grove in this last year?
I'd have to say finances. I mean, everybody's starting to look at the dollar and how the dollar is spent, specifically your tax bill. The main issue, I think, is the gentrification that's happening in Morton Grove. There's a lot of seniors that are frozen, and frozen meaning they're stuck at $2,000, $3,000 a year for their properties, and they're in two certain areas. I had a conversation last week with Brian Sullivan with the Morton Grove Park District, and we talked about two specific areas, one on the west side of town and one on the east side of town. They're very small areas, I think 1 square mile each. Morton Grove is 5 square miles with 20% forest preserve. So I think the main issue, as you can see with the library, is finances. As you can see with the village, we're understaffed. And most people don't know that. They like to take a bite at staff, and it's not the trustees, it's staff. I mean, these people are working their butts off. I mean, am I going to kiss something here? Yeah. Andy DeMonte, Public Works, they do a tremendous job. You look at the fire department, police department, I can't say anything worse than what they're doing. They're doing a tremendous job. Response time by the fire department, even by the police department. I've actually made several calls myself, and they're by my house on the west side of town within 5 minutes from here. I don't know what shortcut they take, but then you look at somebody like John said, Community and Economic Development, who's taking on the responsibilities of Ed Hildebrand, who's left the, planning position, which was actually downsized from Bonnie Jacobson. And then look at Ryan Horn, with finance and what he's done. He's created a surplus this year, and he's actually taking on responsibilities in HR. So people don't really understand that Joe Wade is the core of Morton Grove and how he orchestrates and puts everybody together and streamlines and basically runs a really tight ship.
And it's certainly been necessary in these economic times when everybody's dollar is extraordinarily important, and most entities are loath to raise anybody's taxes any more than they have to. What else is going on in town that is of note?
I liked how Eric framed it around finances. I think in terms of hot button issue, I think the library board is the biggest one. I'm guessing that there's some agreement on that. But that does come back to money. Some of the other stories that we know our readers are really interested in is anything to do with home sales, housing prices, development, TIF districts, trying to attract more commercial businesses in town. So anything that's going to help the village's bottom line is of great interest to people. And we've also had a lot of success around stories that are kind of building a community. And we've got a columnist who writes about being a mom that's really popular. We just had a story about who has the best burger in Morton Grove and got a ton of reaction for that. So I think people also like to be drawn together through stories, to be able to comment on them and share.
I think you probably find with all of the different villages that you cover that there's a certain sense of family in each one. The family may be different, maybe have a different character, and Morton Grove certainly has its own sort of unique family, doesn't it?
It does. And in speaking of family, of course, it's the fall, it's the school year, the AYP test scores. The kids are going to start getting ready to take the tests. And AYP and No Child Left Behind, that's always a big issue in all the school districts, because that whole pass-fail idea is just ludicrous. I'll just go right on record in saying it. I'm a mom, and I think that whole pass-fail for a whole district based on a few scores is ridiculous. So of course, with what's going on in District 63 with the test scores there, that's a prime example of it. And also, like Eric said, finance, money. I mean, there's a couple of stalled developments in Morton Grove. What's going on with the train station? That was pretty big, right? Last year we talked about possibly a Starbucks going up over there, and yeah, there you go. So of course, anything that's good for the village, redevelopment, financing, that's always going to be big.
Now, Stephanie, I know you're not in Morton Grove and you don't do your coverage here. But I think one thing that you can shed light on is how the problems that you've heard from these other three reporters and editors are probably not unsimilar to the suburbs you cover where you are.
Absolutely. I think the Chicago area as a whole is facing similar issues. I'd echo what everybody said as far as city finances, schools. Something we found that our readers really like to know about is when in a city or in a town a business is opening or closing. It's always very popular. People want to know if they can continue going to their corner store, if their neighbor's going to be fired or laid off. I also think something that's going to be a big story moving forward is what's going to happen with ComEd. There's a number of villages that are holding meetings to talk about the issues, and I think that that's going to be a big story up in the next year.
As we look at the villages that you cover, and in particular Morton Grove again, what would you like to see the village do differently, or do you see anything they can do differently that would either attract more business or make it a more desirable place to live?
I think they need to utilize more of the TIF money. There's been a lot of talk with the Economic Development Commission about utilizing TIF money to promote new business. And you look at the new issue with the Prairie View Shopping Center. There's a family that owns the Prairie View Shopping Center based on Montreal that I'm very familiar with. And, most people don't understand that building's going to have to come down. It's asbestos ridden. The whole entire parking lot needs to be regraded and leveled. And what's going to be interesting is, are they going to start utilizing TIF funds in a TIF that's actually doing much better than people think to generate more business through promotion? There's documents upstairs outside of Corporation Counsel's office that shows, demographic information, housing information, Morton Grove's a great place to live, yada, yada, yada. And it comes down to, are they going to start utilizing this money that's being generated to create a promotional mechanism to start attracting business to the former, if I can say, main hub of retail revenue in Morton Grove. You know, that's just one little issue. I'm sure my colleagues here have other things to say.
I wish I had a brilliant answer for that. I don't think there's a municipality in the country that's not struggling with that issue right now, and I think everybody's trying what they're capable of within their own constraints and are trying to be as proactive as possible, but this is a really hard time to answer that question.
Yeah, definitely the TIFs, incentives, communities aren't necessarily using TIF per se, but they're certainly putting out incentives to draw business, to encourage development. I personally would like to see a change in the sign ordinance in Morton Grove. I was sitting at Cappy's, little shout out to Cappy's, and you could see the difference in the border. Like one side has these huge shopping mall signs, and the other one, not so much.
Does make a big difference, doesn't it?
It does, and God bless the businesses that are still in town.
Well, I think beyond numbers and schools, which are undoubtedly important, the reason why people enjoy living where they do is a sense of community, and I think that above all, that's something that is important. And I think maybe panels such as this help foster openness and a sense of kind of we're all in this together that really everybody's looking for in their hometown.
Well, we could go on for an awful long time, but they tell me that time is running out. And so with that, I'm going to thank you very much for joining us here on this show. This, as I mentioned at the top, was the first in what we hope will be a long series. And listening to your comments on the village, I think we're set up for some pretty good shows if we can do this in the future. Our guests have been Eric Potters from the North Shore Voice, Emily Stone, the Associate Regional Editor for 12 Patch.com sites, Grace Tucker, the editor for Bugle Newspapers, and Stephanie Hardiman, who is here from Trib Local. I'm Christopher Michael. Thank you again for joining us here on MGTV as we meet the Morton Grove Press. Good night.